the best football of his life. His contract problems with Rangers over, he's certainly the best winger in Britain. We've been putting this match winner under the microscope. And Cooper really has been playing well this season, and certainly he won't have many better games than this one against Motherwell last week. He's been playing really consistently. You know, the time was when wingers weren't always expected to turn it on every week, but that luxury is long since gone in the modern game. He'd pay his way from the set pieces alone. A Cooper free kick or a Cooper corner worries the best club defences in Scotland. And there have been signs that the international defenders aren't too keen on facing him either. But, like all good Scottish wingers, he's full of trickery. This will go down as one of the great unscored goals, in fact, this season, because Ali McCoist was judged to be offside there. But it was Cooper who scored Rangers' goal in the Skull Cup semi-final. It wasn't his fault that they went out of the competition there with that wonderful free kick which beat Alan Rough, and he's not beaten easily. But whatever he does in the future, there's no doubt this is the most important goal he'll ever score. Wonderful stuff. So the best of luck to Davy Cooper and all the other Scottish players.
Yes, you know, there's history in the making. At Easter Road tomorrow, Britain's biggest football crowd of the day will be at Ibrox. There's the whiff of promotion at Douglas Park, and the certainty of another big crowd at East End Park to see Dunfermline underline their promotion challenge from Division 2. Yes, a most satisfying list of matches lined up for the fans tomorrow. In the Premier League, it's Aberdeen against Dundee, Clydebank at home to St Mirren, Dundee United playing Motherwell, Hibernian versus Hearts, and at Ibrox, Rangers against Celtic. Defeat for either of the old firm clubs would certainly end any championship aspirations for sure, and I have the feeling that tomorrow may well be a repeat of their first meeting at Parkhead at the very start of the season.
Will take the throw for Rangers. Making his way inside, there's McCoist! Ali McCoist! The celebrations begin for Rangers. Ball next day, away from McKinnon. There's the equaliser. The 8th minute of the second half, and Paul McStay makes it one apiece.
And that's how it finished. At Easter Road, Hearts are going for an unbeaten record, 22 Premier League games in a row against their oldest rivals. And joining me now from our Edinburgh studio...
We've had plenty of great live matches here in England, but as Ian Archer tells us now, it's only this afternoon that football is back in the box up there in Scotland.
The good news from Scotland, Saint, is that we're back in business. Football's back on the box. A dispute which started last October has been resolved, and we couldn't have picked a better day to return. It's Derby Day, and that means an all-firm match in Glasgow between Rangers and Celtic, a match crucial to both managers who've been under pressure from their supporters in recent weeks. Rangers' Jock Wallace must know secretly that Rangers aren't going to win any titles this season, so he'll be trying to keep those fans happy by beating his oldest rivals. Celtic's Davy Hay, he hasn't been happy with his team's form for months, but Celtic do stay on the edge of the championship race just as long as they win this afternoon. Oddly enough, that all has to take second billing to the Edinburgh Derby, Hibs against Hearts. And if Hearts either draw or win, they'll set a new Premier Division record of 22 games without defeat. So it's marvellous to be back with an exciting prospect of a great end to the League Championship race. Yup, it's better than being in the bookies on a Saturday afternoon.
You shouldn't be in the bookies, Archie. You should be at the matches. But a couple of great games up there, Jim. You know, the Hearts, Hibs, Derby in Edinburgh. Old times coming back there. There should be a massive crowd. Yeah. And 22 games the Hearts have gone undefeated. That is really something
they're going
special.
well, aren't they?
Great.
Was that his lads that Ian Archer was wearing?
That's the old golfing bullet.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Right.
Hello, good afternoon and a warm welcome to our programme. As you've seen from our opening titles today, Scottish football is back on the box. And in a weekend when congratulations are well in order to Hearts for their superb record 22 unbeaten game sequence in the Premier League, our comeback match is the astonishing Old Firm clash at Ibrox between Rangers and Celtic. So if there's somebody in the kitchen peeling the potatoes or out washing the car, tell them to get back in. This is a game not to be missed.
Only a hermit living in Stornoway without TV or newspapers will be able to avoid knowing that this is Kenny Dalglish's week. He gains his 100th cap for Scotland against Romania on Wednesday. And I'll be assessing Kenny's career with the man who awarded him his first cap, former Scotland manager Tommy Docherty. And we're not forgetting that, celebrations aside, Wednesday's game, which will be exclusively shown on this channel, is an important part of Scotland's preparations for Mexico and World Cup 1986.
Title for 26 years, but on a day when Brian McClair had a hat-trick for Celtic and Hibs won the match at Love Street in the first 15 minutes, Richard Gough scored a vital goal for Dundee United at Dens and John Hewitt did the same for Aberdeen. So everything to play for, particularly in our live game at Tynecastle, Hearts against Aberdeen on April 20th. Now, Franz Beckenbauer.
This football club. Today, Glasgow Rangers. Glasgow Rangers are a club at the crossroads. On the playing front, the season is already virtually over for the Light Blues. Defeats by Hearts in the Scottish Cup and by lowly Motherwell at Fir Park last Saturday have left the Ibrox side languishing amongst the also-rans in the race for Scottish football's major honours. Rangers are a club who are used to being winners, and the lack of success has prompted a crisis at the club. Lawrence Marlborough, who lives in California, is the power behind Rangers in 1986, and yesterday, when 3 directors of the board quit, a power battle had obviously rocked the Ibrox boardroom. However, boardroom changes are far from being at the forefront of the minds of the legions of Rangers supporters. Quite simply, they demand success on the playing field. And the poor playing performances have fueled speculation on the immediate future of Rangers manager Jock Wallace and his backroom staff. Speculation is the key word at Ibrox these days, with rumour and counter-rumour fueling the belief that yesterday's events are merely the tip of the iceberg. For instance, there are strong rumours tonight that former manager John Gregg has been asked to return to Ibrox. But a short time ago, he told us he had not been approached, and after being connected with the club for 25 years, he wouldn't comment on speculation. With me now is sports correspondent Jimmy Sanderson, who I guarantee will comment on speculation. First of all, what happens to those 3 directors, Messrs Simpson, Dawson and Robinson? Did they jump or were they pushed?
Oh, they were pushed. I mean, Mr Marlborough lives near Reno, Nevada. That's the divorce capital of America, and he's divorced to 3 gentlemen. And to say there were no recriminations is a lie, because obviously there are recriminations. I certainly think they were pushed, but may I just say this? I think Rangers have been firing blanks for years. Now they're firing real bullets, and not before the time. They're standing up to be counted. And I hope some of the new board will speak to me, because certainly some of the old ones didn't.
So what does this actually mean? What does this new slimline board full of so-called Marlborough's men mean for the club?
Well, you've got the alliteration right. It is Marlborough's men without any doubt at all. They will do what Lawrence Marlborough says. And I travelled a long time with Lawrence Marlborough's grandfather, John Lawrence, who really loved the club. And there's no doubt at all that Mr Marlborough has told the people what he wants, and if they don't carry it out, he'll get someone else. Now, let's just say this. If there's anyone left in the board in any doubt about who's boss, they better pack a bag now in the blue room and quit out of the front door, because Mr Marlborough is the boss. He's taken a long time to make up his mind.
Right, let's move down the hierarchy a bit. Where does Jock Wallace come in? Should he be shaking in his shoes?
Oh, I don't think he shakes in his shoes. I know him very well indeed. Let me just say this. He knows if he doesn't get success with 8 months to go, he could be out of the door also. But secondly, remember, Jock Wallace may have been 4th choice, hasn't done very well up till now, but he had the guts to take the job. Others bowed out and wouldn't take the job. But he knows that Mr Marlborough wants success in business, he wants success in football, and if Mr Wallace can't give it, then they'll get someone who can. He's had no doubts about that, and I don't think he's ducking the issue.
What about the rumours of bulking out the board, of people coming back? For instance, Wallace Mercer's been mentioned.
Well, why should Wallace Mercer go to Ibrox? I mean, he's going to make Hearts champions, or get every chance. How could he play second fiddle to Lawrence Marlborough? If Wallace Mercer went, and David Holmes, who is the power on the board now, and with Marlborough, that's rather like you sitting here with Selena Scott and Anne Diamond, your contemporaries. You would win, but it'd be some battle.
Ladies are quite different, I assure you.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think we'll go into that one. Well, what about John Gregg?
What about him? He couldn't do the job as manager before. I admire him as Rangers captain and player. Tremendous. But he couldn't do the job, and he resigned. I thought he resigned at the right time. But there's no doubt at all to me that the board at last are firing real bullets. And let me say this. I think they've done the right thing for the club, I think they've done the right thing for the supporters, and I don't think they need to beef up the board after all Aberdeen, the best team in Scotland, run with a 3-man board. They don't need a beefed up board.
So can you see Rangers taking the honours again next season?
What I do see is Rangers taking a step in the right direction. I think they were right to do what they did. Some people will be feeling sad tonight. The fans should feel happy.
Well, Jimmy, thanks very much for joining us. We go back to the news desk now for the closing headlines.
If history of Scottish pop music is written, it probably won't include that, but Dunfermline will merit several mentions. Barbara Dickson, Nazareth and Big Country are just some of the famous exports from the Five Town, and now a new act is competing for the big league. Dunfermline Athletic Football Club, who this year celebrate their centenary, are recording a song, and they're launching it onto the pop market.
Yes, you're right, it is the theme music for EastEnders. As any football fan will tell you, Dunfermline play at East End Park. Clever idea. The words could catch on too. They pose no trouble at all for the team or for their more musical supporters. But did you notice all 50 la-la-las? And what did last night's recording session in an Edinburgh studio just happen to coincide with? The latest episode of The Real EastEnders. It was the perfect way for sound crew, producers and Dunfermline's newest recording stars to get into the mood. The club's entrance into the pop world coincides with Dunfermline hitting the high spots on the football field as well. They're tucked in second place in the second division, looking good for promotion. But what about their singing? Manager Jim Leishman was modest and preferred, as every good football manager would, to see the players doing their singing on the field.
Our first team, Alan, comprises a lot of good football players. I think there's a lot better football players in our first team than our singers behind me here.
What about yourself? Will you have any voice left for shouting at them from the dugout come Saturday?
If we're getting beat, Alan, I'll have plenty of voice on Saturday to shout at these guys.
But you won't break out into EastEnders, I hope.
If we're 2-0 up, yes, I will.
And among those in the musical dugout, Billy Rankin, former Nazareth guitarist. Had he done football songs before?
I haven't. I've done a McEwen's lager advert once, or maybe just a lager advert once. But I haven't done anything like this before.
How on earth are you going to cope with this?
I'm going to kind of try and get them to sing in tune and in time and everything like that. And if it works out, that'll be great. They're sounding good out there. They're sounding sober.
Do you think you'd ever like to do a football song again after this?
No.
5,000 copies of the record will be printed in the first instance, but should demand outstrip supply, the record company will be ready to cash in. And should EastEnders reach the charts, remember you saw it first on this programme.
Now the weather forecast.
Left the club. He had 7 months of his contract remaining. Wallace's departure and the man the club hoped will succeed him was announced in the Ibrox boardroom.
The Board of Directors of Rangers Football Club announced that Mr John Wallace has, by mutual agreement, left the club with effect from today. The Rangers Football Club confirmed that they have entered into negotiations with Sampdoria FC for the transfer of Graeme Souness. Mr Souness is to be invited to join the club as player manager.
Exciting week in the world of football, and as we hear now from Arthur Montford, the pace quickens.
Yes, at the end of a dramatic week dominated by Rangers' signee of Graeme Souness, Scottish football gets its feet back on the ground tomorrow with the latest chapter of the most exciting Premier League story for years. Just look at that table. A prediction, of course, is impossible as Hearts continue their unbeaten run. Dundee United refuse to give up, and Aberdeen and Celtic sustain their challenge. These are the games Hearts have still to play. Tannadice
And a busy week north of the border, with Rangers pulling off a major scoop by capturing Graeme Souness as player manager. A bold move by the Ibrox club, who've been lagging behind in the Championship, which incidentally reaches crunch time today, with leaders Hearts visiting nearest challengers Dundee United in a repeat of last week's Cup semi-final.
Switch off to Levine. Again looking for Clark. There's John Cahoon. 13 minutes gone. Hearts go in front. And what a marvellous volley.
That was some goal,
Good
James.
goal, wasn't it?
A superb goal.
Not very happy laid back by the defender there with the header, but it's not much you could do. It was a good goal, wasn't it?
Sets up a nice final, Hearts against Aberdeen. Scottish Cup final, that's a cracker.
Yes, it is. And they got, I keep harping on it, and they got a lovely strip, that Hearts.
Yeah, I know you like that.
Pretty boys.
You like that. And of course, Hearts still in line for the double, Jim. And the other big game in Scotland today, Aberdeen against Celtic at Pittodrie. Right, now it's time for World Cup Corner.
Hooray! Another one hits the back of the net there, saying everywhere. I score regularly.
I know
now,
you do.
You know.
There are a lot of games around.
Howard, but if there isn't a big smile on Archie McPherson's face today, there definitely should be, because football is back on the BBC screens in Scotland, and that in a week when Rangers have pulled off quite a coup with Graeme Souness on his way to Ibrox as player manager. Archie.
Well, first of all, Bob, to admit it, it's marvellous to be back. We haven't done a game since last October, so Bill Malcolm, our producer, has had me on a refresher course this morning. That is a camera, this is a mic, that is a football pitch out there. Although, to be honest, he was going too fast for me at one stage. You know, the funny thing is, the last game we did was Celtic against Dundee United at Parkhead, when United won by 3-0. And even then, of course, everybody was talking about the possibility of United lifting the championship itself. But nobody, and I mean nobody, that includes Russell Grant, was forecasting Hearts to win the championship. And yet here we are, in the month of April, 28 games later, 24 of them in the Premier Division, and they're still unbeaten. That's one of the most remarkable phenomena to happen in Scottish football for a long time, and it's done nothing but good, because thousands upon thousands of Hearts supporters have returned to the game, not just to watch them at Tynecastle, but all over the country, and today especially at Tannadice, which I think will be one of the most crucial games of the season. Because if you look at the impressive Hearts statistics, Dundee United's are equally as good. For example, they haven't lost at Tannadice since October 1984, and that was 3-1 against Celtic. Now, that's 28 home games. So Hearts, in effect, will have to do something really exceptional today against Dundee United, who I still feel, when they play well, are the best team in the country. Now, I think if either wins, they'll go on and win the championship. That is not sitting on the fence, because I think either Dundee United or Hearts will win this afternoon. That's a marvellous prediction. I happen to fancy Dundee United on this particular occasion, because they flopped last week at Hampden Park, and I don't think they'll give Hearts second chances. However, this is going to be a significant afternoon in a significant week. There we were on Monday, minding our own business, when bang, out of the blue came the news that Graeme Souness was to be Rangers' new manager. The temptation is that he walked across the Clyde to make the signing there, because Rangers have been looking for some sort of salvation. Now, this comes from the head of a man who has been absolutely outstanding, the new Rangers executive, David, who has been, I think, quite superb in this matter. Now, he has a lot of backing from a building firm. He's new to Rangers, and I think Rangers supporters are considering Graeme Souness to be the carpenter.
Graeme, could you just come round to here? That's the idea. Good, thanks very much. Excellent.
You might well have thought that concealed underneath that light blue jersey was a pair of wings about to sprout, because some feel that Souness has returned from Italy not with a highly developed taste for pasta, but for miracles. Jock Wallace tried. Oh, how he tried. But Rangers, despite his initial enthusiasm, found themselves floundering and at least inwardly crying for help. The club's traditions are hard to change, but they've constantly battled to modernize their image without ditching their entire past. But the old ways die hardest of all here, even though their outward face is as fresh as they come. But in footballing terms, the magnificent Ibrox Stadium recently has been the plushest knackers yard in the business. The grass specially fertilized on the ashes of dying hopes that sees the richest club in Scotland struggling even to gain a place in Europe next season. Souness's European stature is the very quality which makes this one of the most imaginative footballing appointments in years. But don't forget, he served a long and hard apprenticeship starting with Spurs. He admits he liked London for every reason bar football. His move to Middlesbrough, though, saw the innate talent developing from brashness to brilliance.
Souness to Murdoch. That's for Craggs, who got well forward. Mills. Souness. Oh, beautiful shot by Graeme Souness.
His name, though, became synonymous with Liverpool. He matured here as the club picked up every honour in the book.
Souness! Oh, I say! What a way to complete a hat-trick. He never saw it.
Domestically, he was a giant, as dominant as an individual as Liverpool were as a club. But the European Cup triumph marked a distinct watershed in his career. But his undoubted triumphs in Italy have not made him unaware of how successful Kenny Dalglish has been as a player-manager.
My situation is slightly different. Without being critical of the players here, Kenny was going into the finished article, or nearly the finished article. I've got changes.
Well, you have major problems in this sense that there's a huge population of Rangers supporters looking to you now like a kind of Moses to lead them from the wilderness.
Yeah, this is something. I mean, I'm not stepping into this job blind. I know what's involved. I know the passion and the feeling there is for Rangers Football Club in Scotland. It's going to take time. I know this is an old cliche about when managers get the job. It's going to take time. I'm not putting any amount of time on when I say we're going to win something. I know that immediately we've got to improve things. And again, I'm not being critical of the people who are here before, but I know immediately I've got to improve things. And start next season, hopefully we will.
Now, I take it, Graeme, that there will be no inhibitions placed on you whatsoever as to whom you would sign for this club.
None whatsoever. I don't see that as a problem. I am, as it's been made public today, I married a Catholic. That wasn't a problem to me. And I'm sure...
Well, let me get this clear now. Let me get it clear without pressurising you at all. A lot of people are interested in this. It means that you will no longer carry on a policy of finding out which school a boy went to or whatever when he's going to play here.
I mean, at the end of the day, if people are Rangers supporters, they want Rangers to win every game they play in. Now, who does it matter who's playing for Rangers? That's the way I see it. And that's the way I've taken the job. I wouldn't have taken the job under any other circumstances like that to be known.
Archie, typical straight-talking from Graeme Souness there, but you're looking very smart today, and I must say it's nice to hear that you're back in the commentary box.
Well, it is. Actually, I had to get a map to get me here. We're not allowed to say where we are, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be a real stunner tonight. Sports scene, 5 to 10. Don't forget that, folks. You can't see it in England, unfortunately. You're missing a treat.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that big game. Howard, can we have a word about Graeme Souness? I mean, it came as almost a bolt out of the blue, didn't it, that he became manager, or will become manager?
It's nice to see Graeme out there with a plain shirt on, really, because I think that's important. I think there's a player-manager. I think that you've got to be out there on the field with them. I think that...
Well, you can give advice on that, because you were player-coach at Stoke for some considerable time. You then had 2 years at Blackburn as player-manager, and you've played a couple, or 2 or 3 for Everton.
The club, we are indeed honoured to welcome Graeme to our club as one of the top players in Europe or in the world even. And he has played under Bill Nicholson, Bob Paisley, Jock Stein. So he comes with a great pedigree. So gentlemen, could I just say to you, welcome our new player manager, Graeme Souness.
With the arrival of Graeme Souness at Ibrox Park, Glasgow, the home of Rangers Football Club, a century of sectarianism could be at an end in Scotland.
Welcome to the club, Graeme.
Welcome, Graeme.
Rangers, an establishment institution founded on the commerce of Victorian Glasgow. Discipline, tradition and Protestantism have been the watchwords. Now they're looking to Graeme Souness for the success that will fill this stadium. On the other side of the city, Celtic Football Club, Irish in background and happy to declare it, the most successful club of recent decades. But the gulf between Rangers and Celtic is a scar as well as a division. So could Graeme Souness be stepping out of the Italian frying pan into the Glasgow fire? In 1888, Celtic Football Club emerged from the grinding poverty of Glasgow's East End with a specific mission to raise money for the Catholic poor. Rangers had been in successful business for 15 years, soon setting a precedent since maintained for fine stadiums. Celtic quickly became a major power from the East End, drawing on a huge support. And with a foundation inspired by Brother Walfrid, a Marist from County Sligo, they identified fully with their background. The great Irish landleaguer, Michael Davitt, was the first patron and laid a centre turf of shamrocks at Celtic Park. The Irish in Glasgow identified keenly with events across the water. A rapidly developing Glasgow rivalry soon proved to be good box office, and stayed that way. And Celtic's early success was spectacular. They won 6 league titles in a row up to 1910. The upstarts from the East End had Rangers struggling to keep pace. The arrival of Belfast shipyard workers in 1912 has been credited with giving Rangers their Protestant edge. But Calvinist Scotland was capable of producing its own reaction to an organisation that was Irish, mainly Catholic, and successful. Under Bill Struth, the hard no Catholics line became enshrined. He had his autocratic counterpart at Celtic Park, Willie Maley, a man shrewd enough not to minimise the differences. Football was the mass male entertainment of the interwar years. It was an age of spindly-legged giants. Celtic's cup-winning forward line of 1928, Rangers' well-attired victors of the early 30s. By the 1930s, the green and the blue dyes were cast. By cruel mischance, a martyr was now to enter the mythology. John Thompson, the prince of goalkeepers, young, graceful and infinitely courageous. A dive at the feet of Sam English ended his life and launched the legend. Like many of Celtic's greatest players, John Thompson was not a Catholic, just an exceptionally good goalkeeper from the Fife pits. However irrationally, though, his death deepened the wedge that divided the terracings and the city. He became a lasting symbol of the old rivalry. "40,000 paid homage at his funeral in Cardenden, many of those who couldn't afford the fare walking from Glasgow and camping out. Jim Thompson, still in Cardenden, recalls his brother's passing.
I called him a foolish goalie. I remember just not long before he was fatally injured, and his jaw was broken and shoulder blade. I said, "John, this will have to stop." But he says, "The only thing I see there is a wall, and it must be mine." Oh, I say, "I quite understand, but you'll have to stop that or he won't be there long." And the first game he played after it, he did the very same thing, right at their feet. And Mother, for all that Sam English did it, she didn't blame him for his death. He was just playing the game too, you see. He was a very, very popular boy. I mean, religion didn't mean so very much to John. He would have played for Rangers, he would have played for Celtic, he would have played anybody that got there first. He was quite popular with the Rangers boys too. And mind, at that time, it was pretty deadly in Glasgow. Celtic and Rangers.
Farewell, my darling Johnny, Prince of players, we must part. No more we'll stand and cheer you on the slopes of Celtic Park.
Sam English headed south and never fully recovered from the trauma, particularly from Maley's reluctance to acknowledge that it had been an accident. Rangers taking the 1934 Scottish Cup 5-0 against St Mirren. It was the age of huge crowds, and that meant big business. In the late 30s, the Ibrox ground record was set at 118,000. Celtic Park set 92,000. When Celtic ran out to meet Aberdeen in the 1937 Scottish Cup final, there were over 146,000 in Hampden. This really was football in its heyday. Celtic lifted the cup for the 15th time, and Willie Maley reflected on the club's humble origins 50 years earlier. I recall, he wrote, the struggles of our early days, when nothing but dogged determination kept our flag flying. Jimmy McGrory became Celtic's post-war manager, but by that time, the flying of the flag was causing problems. In 1952, Celtic survived an effort to ban them for flying the Irish flag in commemoration of their roots. Rangers supported them, while Hibs, of all people, by that time far removed from their own origins, led the attack. Now, having triumphed in this bitter dispute off the park, Celtic could take special satisfaction from beating Hibs in the UK-wide Coronation Cup final, in these pre-European days the greatest available achievement. Jock Stein shepherded the Celtic defence. It was also the era of John McPhail, Bobby Evans, Willie Fernie and the great Charlie Tully. Ibrox, in all its glittering austerity, was seeing the end of Bill Struth's reign, but his spirit and preoccupations were to live on.
He was such a powerful man that we all, more or less, behaved ourselves, you know, as much as we could. No late nights and things like that, and boozing and things like that. That was all out.
I've seen many players shaking on their shoes whenever the intercom went and there was something to go upstairs. You didn't know what you were going to get. When you're upstairs, it may have been good, it may have been bad news. But with old Bill, there was not really a lot of bad news. It was all for your own good, your own benefit. And it made you a man in life. And I would say here and now that that was one of the main things in these days of Rangers Football Club, that you had, first of all, had to be a man.
I was signed, not by Scott Simon in these days, I was signed as a schoolboy prodigy by the late Bill Struth, which goes quite a bit, but I was just a young lad. And we were always brought up in a sense of discipline, you know, so it's just like your public schools are told, you know, well-dressed, well-mannered, watch where you are, because everywhere you go, you represent the club, you've got to project the image as such. So there was a strictness and there was a discipline that I think then stays with you throughout your whole life then, you know.
Scott Simon, an old Ibrox favourite, had replaced Struth, and he suffered an early 7-1 indignity at Celtic's hands in the 1957 League Cup final. But by the turn of the decade, built around the outstanding talents of Jim Baxter, their best side of the modern era was in place.
There were no tactics in that. You bought players as you're playing 4-2-4. That was the thing. Ian McMillan out in the middle of the park. Now you've got the big Harry and then Greg and that coming, McKinnon and all that. We had a great setup. But there were no tactics getting in and we've got to do this. You just done your training. Say you went out and played your game and that was it. But you went to Glasgow in a restaurant at all. It was, you know, the best seats. And I don't bother about the bill. I wish they would do that now. No, it was great to be a Rangers player at that time. I don't know now how the thing is, but there's definitely the same adulation as there was in my day. And it's the 60 to 65, the first 5 years I was at Ibrox, as I said, we're a great team. We're winning everything. I mean, the crowds were 60,000 and that easily. It was fantastic. And the football was great with Ian McMillan. I wonder if the likes of Ian McMillan and myself would get a kick at the ball now. That's all, boom, boom. Everybody's running about like mad. But I think the 60s teams, you know, what was it again? Niven Shearer or Richie Shearer, Carlo, Greg McKinnon, Baxter, Henderson, McMillan, Miller, Brandon, Wilson. I mean, it's a fabulous team. They're not trying to tell me that team playing the day when they won that Premier League. They was cushion.
The first piece of cup luck to Celtic, who won the toss, so it's Rangers to kick off in this cup final replay at Hampden. Straight away, a foul given against Chalmers of Celtic. Baxter going to take the kick. Crowd of approaching 130,000 here at Hampden. The atmosphere just right for an exciting, tense cup final match. Celtic have put out a short forward line with Bobby Craig the outside right, Murdoch, Hughes, Divers and Chalmers, the rest of the forwards. There's Brand. Ian McMillan, of course, back at inside right for Rangers. Murdoch. Touch on to Miller. McMillan, a level pass to Henderson. Brand scores. Brand, after 8 minutes play, has shot Rangers into a one-goal lead, and see the tremendous excitement on the terracing. Place to Divers. Robin Wilson. Brand flicks it on the inside of Mackay, who topples Dermot. Referee judging that Mackay fouled Wilson. Baxter will take this free kick. McNamee heads it away. Here's Miller. A left foot drive, and it comes cannons off the post. Well, certainly so far, Shearer and Proven have managed to snuff out the challenge. Here's Hughes. Well, that's been Celtic's best try of the match so far. I've just been saying there, but Hughes must have heard me. Just been saying how effectively the challenge of the Celtic wingers have been cut out by Shearer and Proven. You've noticed that Hughes had his success coming through the middle, maybe significant. Divers. Rolling it towards Craig. Baxter. Wilson. Miller. Double pass from Miller to Wilson. Miller. Brand, a shot on the turn of the ball into the net. An incredible goal by Ralph Brand. Well, no wonder there's such tremendous applause from these packed Hampden terraces, because that really was a magnificent shot by Brand. So it now looks certain that Rangers will equal the Scottish Cup record of Celtic by bringing the tally up to 17 here at Hampden Park in this cup final replay.
Oh, I didn't want to leave Rangers. I mean, they were a great club, but they didn't pay the money. Rangers paid everybody the same. Well, I didn't agree with that. I mean, it's like putting Frank Sinatra on by the Alexander brothers and getting the same money. So Sunderland come up there if you could, and I went there.
Well, in my opinion, Jim Baxter was one of the greatest players I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I honestly think it was a mistake on the part of the Rangers board to let him go. And I think if you check back, you will find that the decline of Rangers in the 60s coincided with the selling of Jim Baxter, and it also coincided with the ascent of Celtic.
There had been lean Celtic years, but when Chairman Bob Kelly brought Jock Stein back as manager, the Kelly kids soon matured.
In the years that Jock Stein was at Celtic Park, I mean, he brought Celtic from being a top club in Scotland, basically, to being a top club in Europe. And he put in an awful lot of work to that end, albeit he had a lot of good players as well, but it's basically a team effort from top to bottom. And he, as I say, gelled us all together and got us working as a team.
Everything had to be done right. I mean, if we're doing shooting at Barrafield, and if the goalkeeper blocked it, to kick goalkeeper Bonham into the back of the net, every exercise was finished. You didn't, if you're running 50 yards, you couldn't run 47 or 48 yards. If you did that, you were back to start again. Everything was done and had to be done right.
Jock tried to treat you as adults, and he hoped you responded as adults. And if you responded as adults, then you didn't have a particular problem. He had this image of being a big hard man. I always thought he was a big softy, to be quite frank with you.
If you're ever late, you're just left out of the team and didn't believe in waiting. You know, if you did everything right, if he told you that was right. I mean, at Parkhead, he was just God, you know. He was a man.
In 1967, Celtic reached the pinnacle of their history. The club, founded to help the poor and who had retained the loyalties of a ghetto minority, were elevated to the heights of European football. The folk who bore the green and white headed for Lisbon. The incredible had happened. Celtic were in the final of the world's greatest club competition, the European Cup.
The whole stage was set for us. We came there and everybody was there. The Celtic support had already been there, and they'd influenced the Portuguese to such an extent that they started to look for us to win rather than anything else.
Inter Milan looked really dangerous here. Capellini was brought down by Craig. A penalty. With the spot kick, Mazzola made no mistake.
And one of the best things that ever happened was the fact that they scored first, because from then on in, it was just a fierce determination. We thought the penalty was very harsh at the time, but, you know, having seen it 100 times since then on tape and whatnot, I'm inclined to agree the referee was right. But at that time, we felt a grievance about it. So from then on in, there was only that absolute determination to see a wrong as we felt it put right, and I don't think there was ever any other result than the one that was achieved. In fact, I think, to be honest with you, Inter Milan got off very lightly that day.
Then full-back Tommy Gemmell shot from 25 yards out. Gemmell's brilliant goal didn't put new heart into Celtic. The old one was good enough to beat anybody. And how their supporters thanked their stars they'd come to Lisbon. Barely 7 minutes from time came the winning goal. Chalmers deflected Murdoch's shot past Sati. That was how Celtic became the first ever British team to win the European Cup. Billy McNeil and his magnificent men earned the thanks and admiration of their native Glasgow, Scotland, and the whole United Kingdom.
While Celtic flourished, the rivals had sunk into a rut. In 1967, they suffered a devastating defeat at Berwick in the Scottish Cup, a trauma that had far-reaching consequences. Not least the town of Berwick was subjected to post-match mayhem, one in a sequence of such episodes that drew increasing and unwelcome attention to the Ibrox ethos. The man who defied Rangers was a goalkeeper called Jock Wallace. Coupled with Celtic's European success, Berwick served notice that time and football progress were passing Ibrox by. Scott Simon was soon unceremoniously removed.
Well, obviously it was a hard time then. I mean, it was a big shock. In fact, it was a disaster, really. The only thing, it wasn't a disaster for me because I got my chance to play in the first team. And as I say, it was a time in the club when, after the Berwick game, there was a few players that never played for the club again.
There were opportunities for Rangers to change their ways. The 1971 disaster, when 66 people died on Stairway 13 at Ibrox, should have put football in perspective. Glasgow was united in grief, but this moment of ecumenical conciliation proved all too temporary. The European Cup Winners' Cup Final, Barcelona, 1972.
It's a dangerous Steen. Magnificent goal. Magnificent goal. Comes to Smith. Smith almost overrunning it, but keeping possession nicely. Smith now chopping it across with his left foot. Chance for Johnston. And it's there. Prodigious kick from McCloy. Huge ball. Straight through to Johnston. Johnston in front of goal, and it's a goal. A sensational goal by Johnston. Derek Johnson to Matheson. Matheson in trouble there. And this could be dangerous. Good chance for Dynamo, and it must be a goal. It is. The substitute scores. 3 minutes to play. Rangers still lead 3-1. Makovikov still going. The Russians are not finished yet. They're still trying. Makovikov coming through, and it's a goal. Makovikov scores, and that's it.
But even Rangers' finest hour was to turn sour.
Dynamo 2, and look at that start. Rangers players absolutely mobbed. And this is a serious moment. The Rangers players trying to get back. Willie Waddle is submerged. Absolute bedlam. Absolute bedlam.
The fans came up the park, as you well know. There was all the problems, and I always visualised winning a European trophy, picking up the cup and being able to go around the park and show all the supporters. We had travelled halfway over Europe to see it. But I walked into a room similar, not any bigger than this, and there was a big desk, a big table like this, and the UEFA committee sitting at the back of it, and the cup in the middle, and I had my strip and everything on, and he just says, right, Rangers Football Club, winners, handed me the cup, and I walked along another corridor, and all the boys were sitting in the bath by the time I got back.
They came home to the welcome that their performance in Barcelona merited. It had been a tremendous display from Rangers under Willie Waddle and coach Jock Wallace. But the violent aftermath ensured that the club once again faced searching questions about the dogma that set them apart. Willie Waddle eventually yielded to mounting public pressure. He went to the centre circle at Ibrox to tell the faithful that a new era was on hand. Nothing duly happened, except that David Hope was ditched as club chairman amidst questions about his long-dead wife's religion. But there are other special ingredients which keep the old firm turnstiles clicking.
The atmosphere. A lot of them used to get sick. I loved it. The bigger the crowd, the better. I loved it.
The atmosphere itself was superb, absolutely superb. I think it even surpassed the atmosphere in a Scotland-England game.
The noise was the overwhelming feature. This noise, which was there when you went onto the field and was invariably there all the way through until you come off. And you were aware as a referee that you could blow for an infringement and the players wouldn't hear you. You may have to blow twice or three times, or you may have to blow very loudly. This was always a consideration. But then there was moments when I remember coming off one day at Celtic Park, and the spectator leaned over the old tunnel, and Rangers had won this match, and he addressed me in the affectionate manner that spectators always reserve for referees, and then told me that it wasn't a whistle I should have, it was a flute.
I went to play with Sheffield Wednesday for a period of time after Rangers, and we had a derby match there between Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. And you know, the fans were getting excited, the press were doing interviews and that. And I was asked, how did it compare with the Rangers and Celtic Old Firm match? I said, it's like a Sunday school picnic.
They've got atmosphere, certainly, the Manchester derby, but nothing that would even compare with the atmosphere that an Old Firm game generates. I think that, I don't think there's any, I doubt very much that there's any game in the world would really compare with the atmosphere that's generated between Celtic and Rangers.
By the mid-70s, Rangers were successfully challenging Celtic's dominance with 2 trebles under Jock Wallace. The emergence of a serious challenge from the northeast was still a mere dot on a horizon which the Glasgow clubs dominated.
Clean unmarked at the far side, Edmondson. The request by Young, here's McDonald. Great goal! 21 minutes in the second half. Ali McDonald breaks the deadlock. Rangers lead by 1-0.
You know, it's one of the few places where you can change your religion every time you go from one end of the football ground to the other. And I've been insulted by experts at both ends of the ground. And you are always aware that this is a keenly fought match. But religious aspect, or pseudo-religious aspects, don't come onto the field of play at all.
But at the end of the 1980 Scottish Cup final, they did come onto the field of play with a degree of nastiness that prompted wider Scottish society to call ever more insistently for change. Change in the drink laws which followed, and change also in Rangers' defiantly sectarian policy.
I think the biggest problem of that religious situation is going to be how you break it, how you eventually break the walls. I mean, the press and the media bring it up all the time. And I feel that it might be better if there was 6 or 7 youngsters, 13, 14-year-old, signed and allowed to grow into the club and get to know their areas as a football player.
Let's just go to the top of the tree. You see players like Pelé and Michel Platini. You know, if they can't get a game for, and Alfredo Di Stefano and all these guys, if they couldn't pull a Rangers jersey over their shoulder, well, I'll eat my bunnet.
Probably I think if it happened, I think it would make Rangers a better team. Although possibly a lot of Rangers fans will disagree with me in that, but I'm just speaking the truth, I feel.
Genoa had been home for Graeme Souness for 2 seasons since he parted company with Liverpool at the end of a fabulously fruitful relationship. At Sampdoria, he revelled in the atmosphere of Italian League football, custom-built for his temperament and style. But by last November, the thought had already occurred to Rangers Chief Executive David Holmes that this just might be the man to transform Ibrox's fortunes. Graeme Souness' own thoughts were couched in much more general terms.
I'd like to go back and have a go at management. I don't know about player management because, you know, I can't rule anything out, but I think ideally I'd like to leave any memories I had or any memories people have of me of being a reasonable player back home is leave it that way. When I was younger, I didn't fancy it at all, the coaching and the management side. I think as you get older, maybe you kid yourself on it, you know a bit more than you actually do, and would like to try your own ideas out. I'd like to give it a go.
Even while the first tentative contacts are being established between Rangers and Souness, the build-up is underway for the latest encounter in Glasgow's own gladiatorial tradition. At Celtic Park, David Hay has lived through a couple of rocky seasons, but the board has just confirmed the security of his position. In this game, above all others, he knows that he will also have the terracings to answer to.
It's a mystery to me. The game commences for the usual fee, plus expenses, confidential information. It's in the diary. This is my investigation. It's not a public inquiry.
I think as the week goes on, you know, that feeling of a Rangers-Celtic game comes through to the players without you actually saying too much. We've both had an indifferent season so far, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's going to be a sellout, and that more or less sums up the importance of a Celtic and Rangers game to both sets of fans.
To me, beyond any shadow of a doubt, it's the best club game in the world. It's not towns divided, it's a countries divided.
It's an important game for both clubs. Celtic are still chasing the Premier League title, though more in hope than optimism. For Rangers, the immediate priority is to salvage the last lucrative Scottish place in Europe. Every seat in Ibrox Stadium is filled. Whatever their form, Celtic and Rangers are still #1 at the box office, and they still provide that magic ingredient.
What's special about a Celtic Rangers game?
The atmosphere. It's a game, but to other folk, it's 90 minutes of pure bigotry. It comes to, no, it's down to religion right through.
It seems to be a way back in history. And all different supporters just seem to have a special thing for the game. Celtic and Rangers supporters together. And once they're outside the park, there's a lot of friendship there.
Great beating Celtic. Great beating. Why particularly the Celtic? It's just a tradition. As far as I'm concerned, the Celtic Rangers game it's inbred. If you're a glass beaching, but it's you're either one or the other.
Well, it's no use listening to it on the radio or anything like that. You have to come to a game like this to enjoy it.
There's always been a great respect between the people at Rangers and Celtic. I mean, at the first team level, reserve team level, youth team level, we all want to be each other. But in the aftermath of it all, I wonder how he's feeling.
Yeah, I suppose at the end of the day, since you become a manager, you actually feel a bit of sympathy towards your opposite number, Jock Wallace. Whereas as a player, I don't suppose you shook hands with your opponents and you were delighted you won, but I think after that bit of elation, there is a bit of sympathy goes towards your opposite number, because you know the feeling yourself.
I can't answer.
You only notice the rain if you're locked outside. The choirs are in full cry. The polarisation is complete.
Same as every other one, isn't it? Have you put anything special on it?
After the agony and the ecstasy, the important game was now the next one. But Jock Wallace's respite was to be strictly temporary, for other wheels were well in motion. The ultimate Ibrox man was about to undergo a cruel test of character. There had been changes in the Ibrox boardroom. The men now in charge wanted success, yes, but they also wanted to dress it up in a change of image. Tradition was no longer an adequate defence for failure, and Jock Wallace didn't fit the plans. Media men had learned the real reason for Souness's visit to Glasgow. Jock Wallace's hours were numbered, and the cat was out of the bag. Rangers had to act quickly. For Wallace, the end came quickly. It was the Scottish football story of the decade, and as a story, it had the great merit of surprise. But the ink on Graeme Souness's contract was hardly dry before the bigger question was being asked around the land. The question which decades of Ibrox intransigence had made legitimate and inevitable. "72 hours after the Souness appointment, and the Rangers support turn out in force at Clydebank for the first opportunity to engage in the debate. Does their satisfaction with the impending arrival of Souness, the player and manager, outweigh the tribal suspicions about the prospect of Souness, the reformer?
I think it's the best move Rangers have made in years. I just hope he does the best, because do you know Graeme Souness? Everywhere he's went, he's made improvements, and he's just been brilliant. So I just hope he makes changes with Rangers.
I think Graeme Souness will be a good signing for Rangers. And it states in the papers, Rangers are expecting success yesterday. I don't believe in that. I think Rangers will get success. 2 or 3 years for Graeme to settle in. He's going to take 2 years to settle in at least.
He's an unknown quantity as a manager. He's a rare player. No surrender! So we're not caring about that, as long as he doesn't sign Catholics.
Why do you say that?
We've went 113 years without him. Why start now?
If he signs an RC, right? But Rangers will lose a lot of support. It's as easy as that.
I'll not change anything on the terracins. No, we'll still have sectarian songs. We'll still be Protestants. And if these players are willing to accept it, by all means, they want to play for the club. Let them play for the club. If they score 3 against Celtic, I'll be happy.
Well, as long as a Rangers player goes onto the park and plays in a blue shirt and plays for a Rangers team, I don't care who he signs.
Well, I'm more excited about Graeme Souness, possibly the player, what I'm a manager. But in the long run, I believe it'll be a good move for the Glasgow Rangers. Now we'll be a more European-orientated club. Can only do well.
We've got our traditions at Ibrox, and we don't like to see them broke for the sake of one man. Souness or no, we like our own traditions.
I think the fans are desperate now for a winning side, and if it does come down to that, they're not come down to that.
They said that he would sign Catholics, but if I look at big Jock Wallace, he said he would sign Catholics when he first came on, and he never ever do that. I think it's all talk.
Best of luck to him if it does. If we get a European Cup winner,
if it does it, that's it. If he win a European Cup winner, I'll be the first one to go and support him, right? But I want to know why all these pressmen don't get at Celtic for not getting a Protestant director in their box. They don't get at Man United. It's all the judges got.
We've got a world-class player and you keep bringing a religion.
You don't get at anybody else except us.
Only time can tell, I think. You know, you're bringing in another sort of inexperienced manager. It could be a success or it could be a flop. It's just it's a gamble I think Rangers are taking, but to me it's a good gamble, you know.
And there's another gamble, that there are more folk interested in supporting a winning Rangers team than in its religious makeup. Time alone will tell. Rangers lost this one, 2-1. Tradition seems rather a grand word with which to dignify the 75-year-old practice of not allowing people of a particular religion to play football for you. Is Graeme Souness the man to finally lay the religious ghost, while rediscovering the other Ibrox tradition of winning more than the occasional trophy?
It's very impressive. I think this is as impressive as any I've been in. Certainly as impressive as Liverpool's. Okay, the trophies are different to the ones I've got there, but there's certainly more here than there are in Liverpool. It's a very impressive sight. A lot of history here. More history here than I think I've seen anywhere else. Really, I don't know that much about the traditions of the club apart from the obvious things. This is something I'm going to learn and have to learn quickly.
What about the football passion in the city of Glasgow, Graeme?
Yeah, that's another thing which I'm going to have to adjust to. Although I played football in Liverpool for 7 years, and it's the same, a big city, big port city divided with two great teams. And there was a lot of passion there, but maybe feelings already out, there's more here. To begin with, I'm hoping I can give them results, and at the end of the day, in maybe 2 or 3 years, results with style and the sort of football I want to be part of, both playing and watching as a manager. I want to continue playing in midfield for as long as I feel I'm doing a job there, because I feel that is my best position. But at the end of the day, if I feel I can no longer do the job as I want to do it, then I'd be looking to maybe drop back and play in a defence. But I would love to, after 6 months of next season, be able not to include myself, because with that many good players here playing well, that'd be a great situation.
Are you prepared to play anyone of any religion?
I think I've said it all before. I'd just like to go over it again. The job was offered to me, and understanding that the situation would be that Catholics were going to be signed if they were good enough to play for Rangers FC. I certainly wouldn't have taken a job under any other circumstances. If they're good enough. I think at the end of the day, Jim, if they're Rangers supporters, and I mean Rangers supporters, not people who've got are using the club as some sort of vehicle for anything else. If they're a Rangers supporter, they want to see the team winning. That's all that matters. That's all that should matter. And I shall try and give them that. And if that means signing Catholics and upsetting people, I shall do that. If it means getting a winning team, because at the end of the day, that's what I've been brought here for. That's all I'm interested in, is winning.
Some Rangers supporters say they won't come and watch Rangers if Graeme Souness signs a Catholic.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but at the end of the day, I think it's the only way forward. Look at the way the club's gone over the last, in recent years anyway, let's not put a figure on it, but in recent years. And I don't think this issue has helped the club in any way. And I think the quicker we get rid of that, then we can make this big step forward and hopefully put Rangers where they should be, as the premier club in Scotland, and maybe one day the premier club in Great Britain.
If Glasgow is going to project itself as to be an international city of the future, we really have to try and look at the sectarianism in a broader field. Now, Graeme Souness has already said, and I understand that the Rangers chief executive and people have said that Graeme Souness will be able to sign whoever he wants, and it will be his football ability that will determine it. Now, at the time when I nominated and moved Kenny Dalglish as a freeman of the city of Glasgow, one of the things that I said was that Kenny Dalglish was able to cross the bridge that was supposed to exist in Glasgow. You know, Kenny Dalglish was a well-known Rangers supporter as a youth and became a very successful professional footballer for Celtic. So, I mean, if Graeme Souness, and I've no reason to doubt his sincerity when he said that he will sign whoever it is, it's their football ability. If Graeme Souness is able to sign and get rid of this apparent tradition that exists at Ibrox of not having any Catholic working for them or playing for them, if Graeme Souness can overcome that, then he will help the Glasgow of the future. We'll be able then to project to the world that different barriers we have, different religions we have, different communities we have in Glasgow, but we can still all work with each other for the common good.
You've never seen an Old Firm game then. What have you been told about those games?
Well, obviously Kenny Dalglish has told me a great deal about them. I think he would say that they're even bigger than the Everton-Liverpool one. I think there's more passion involved. I'm looking forward to it, Jim. I'm looking forward to watching them, but first I'm looking forward to playing them.
Long ball through to Conlane. McDonald stepping in. Conlane there with Connolly. What a smash. Back out to Young finally. Conn shouting for it. Over it comes. Headed in by Conn. And the goal! And forward. Steen losing it to Lynch.
nice ball to Dalglish. Wilson again running wide of the defence. Dalglish to Wilson. What a ball, what a pass, what a chance, what a goal. Play the ball bending out the way, Colin Jackson under it. Steen going up with Johnston. Steen again with a chance. Oh, 1-1. Chance for Aiken, steering round the back. Waits to Glavin. Left foot shot across the ball and Aiken scores. Clear though. Carlane coming right through, and it's a goal. Carlane has scored. Husky. Snedden is onside. It's a good move. Turns it out in front. Cooper scores. Balson and about done. Lifted in a goal. McDonald scores.
Kenny Dalglish is unique among the great footballers of the world. Not only a key figure in Scotland's World Cup squad, he's also manager of Liverpool, one of Europe's most successful teams. In Kenny, we talk to managers, players and football legends about this hero, and we spend time at Anfield capturing the build-up to a big game. Scotland's most successful player and now one of the youngest managers in the game. We look at Kenny next Friday at 7:30.
The game of football has long been a mainstay of Glasgow street culture. The city divides all too deeply between two clubs of very different identities, and Kenny Dalglish grew up as a Rangers supporter. In his early teens, his family moved to a multi-storey block of flats just a corner kick away from Ibrox Stadium and looking down on Rangers' training ground. Apart from Dennis Law, all his boyhood heroes were Rangers players. Dalglish could watch at close quarters, a club he yearned to join. He became an apprentice joiner, having been advised to forget football and to concentrate on a trade, but he hoped that Rangers would notice his already outstanding football skills. At the age of 16, he wanted to play for no one else. But in one of football's great ironies, adulation from the balcony wasn't reciprocated. Myopia robbed Rangers of his services. It wasn't until 1983 that an Ibrox manager first made a move for him. Much too late for Rangers and for Kenny. By that time, he was already a giant in world football, and Liverpool, a city similar to Glasgow in many ways, had acquired its own hold.
I certainly made inquiries for Kenny Dalglish when I came here at Rangers, and I tried very hard, but I don't think it got past Bob Paisley or Joe Fagan, whoever. We wouldn't let me get near him. I would have signed, I would have carried him up the road here to play for us.
It was a disappointment for Kenny's family and friends that he didn't fight his way into the hallowed halls of Ibrox. But his talents had been observed.
double for Dalglish and Liverpool, and the risk some fans took to see it. The double that Hearts didn't want. Britain expels Liverpool beat their Merseyside rivals Everton in the most thrilling Wembley Cup final for years. 1 down at half-time, they fought back to win 3-1. They're the first team to achieve the league and cup double since Arsenal 15 years ago. Mark Austin reports.
Football needed a showpiece final more than ever this season, and who better to provide it than the two best sides in the league and 100,000 fans determined to make it a colourful day to remember. And in this battle of the Merseyside Reds and Blues, the Blues struck first. After 27 minutes, an inch-perfect pass from Reid, and the Footballer of the Year, Gary Lineker, did the rest. In the second half, Liverpool were under intense early pressure, their defence uncharacteristically ruffled. The bench was getting anxious, and minutes later, battled. But then suddenly the game turned Liverpool's way, their Danish international Jan Molby proving an inspiration, letting in Ian Rush for the equaliser. At the other end, Grobbelaar had regained his composure, and it was just as well. The match was balanced on a knife edge, but it was Molby who swung it Liverpool's way. This time he set up Craig Johnston. Everton's manager, Howard Kendall, was watching his second final in 2 years slip away. By now, Liverpool's surge towards victory was unstoppable. 6 minutes from time, Rush made it 3-1. Captain Alan Hansen lifted the cup for Liverpool. But it was Kenny Dalglish's day. In his first season as player-manager, he's achieved what no Liverpool manager has achieved before, the league and cup double. And Liverpool are only the third side to do that this century.
And police say the behaviour of the fans was, in general, absolutely fantastic. Have won the Scottish Cup for the 4th time in 5 years. It meant a double of the wrong kind for the beaten side Hearts, who lost their chance of a trophy for the 2nd time in 8 days. Last Saturday, they were deprived of the league championship in the final 10 minutes of their match. Harry Smith reports on today's game at Hampden.
It was Hearts struggling to shake off the disappointment of their surprise defeat in the League Championship last week, who made the most of the early play.
And that's Black. It was a very good corner.
But before the game was 6 minutes old, they suffered another blow. Aberdeen's John Hewitt did the damage after this run from midfield.
John Hewitt will try the shot on. He does, and he scores. Brilliantly.
Hearts' best chance of the first half fell to Gary Mackay, but his shot was wide.
There's a shot in a 6 inches pass from Mackay.
Just after the interval, John Hewitt got his and Aberdeen's second goal from a cross by Weir.
There's a dummy, there's a goal. 2-0. John Hewitt. A superb goal by Aberdeen.
Hearts weren't yet out of the running, but luck just wasn't on their side.
Touch, and there's a ball.
Aberdeen's third came from a Billy Stark header.
Billy Stark. 3-0 for Aberdeen.
Hearts' misery was completed when their captain, Walter Kidd, was sent off just before the final whistle. So Aberdeen lifted their 4th Scottish Cup in 5 years. And Hearts, who just 8 days ago had been chasing a magnificent double, found it hard to hide their disappointment at being runners-up for the 2nd time in a week.
Without any kind of ticket were still determined to see the game, risking arrest, even serious injury for a prized place on the terrace. Some succeeded, one fell and was taken to hospital with a suspected fractured skull. Others missed the match for more familiar reasons.
I got my ticket stolen just going in to the turnstiles. Just had it in my hand like that and slashed it down in my hand.
Minutes before